We can start around the table and then go to the wall with Tony. I'm Tyrone Nelson in Rickham County, representing Rickham County.
Sure.
Donnie Ashley, General Counsel.
Lincoln Saunders, City of Richmond.
Todd Garrett in Rickham County.
Dan Schmidt in Rickham County.
Ellen Robertson, City of Richmond.
Dave Anderson, Chesterfield.
Barb Smith, Chesterfield.
Jim Engel, Chesterfield.
Tom Berry, recommending GRTC.
Faith Walker, Executive Director, RideFinders. Good morning, Ashley Mason, Manager of Organizational Management, GRTC. Simpson, Director of Planning and Scheduling, GRTC.
Richard Hankins, RV. Johnson, Zerl, GRTC, Chief Financial Administrative Officer.
Adrian Torres, GRTC, Chief of Staff.
Joe Gilbert, GRTC. Michael Bird, GRTC.
Monica Carter, Safety and Service Compliance Manager, GRTC.
Anthony Carter, Director of Risk Management, GRTC. Tim Moore, Chief of Trades Operations, GRTC.
Ken Lance, Glen RVA.
Charles Robideau, President of Chesterfield.
Dexter, Fertilize, GRTC. GRTC, Virginia.
Angela Hennings, Procurement Services Administrator, GRTC.
All right, good morning, everyone. Public comments. Ashley Mason, do we have any public comments?
Good morning, Mr. Board Chair, members of the board. The public meeting notice, meeting agenda, and agenda attachments for the February 21st, 2023 standing meeting of the board of GRTC, RideFinders, and Old Dominion Transit Management Company were posted on February 13th, 2023 at ridegrtc.com. Per the meeting notice, all written comments received via email by Ashley Mason prior to 5 p.m. on the day preceding a meeting were provided to all members of the board the night before the meeting are read during the public comment period of the meeting by staff on the 2-minute speaking limit and will be included in the minutes of the meeting. Also, for this meeting notice, this meeting is being live streamed on YouTube. This meeting, I received no public comment.
All right, no public. Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm Charles Robideau. I live in Chesterfield. And my interest primarily is in finding out what my county is doing to support this organization. And I in particular looked at budget documents. And this is a budget season. So I have been looking into the budget documents in the packet. And I find very little to support this concept that Chesterfield is really pulling its weight. I had to go to page 50 in the packet to a section statement of income. And tucked off on the right-hand side of this document is a one-column FY 2023 annual budget. And this is the only place I could find which itemized the contributions of the various jurisdictions. And in this section, it records for City of Richmond, $8,554,510. For Enrico, $4,451,000. $108,000. For the city of Petersburg, $200,000. And for Chesterfield, $248,000 and is 248. $250,000, where city of Richmond is in for $9+ million. Last I heard, Chesterfield and city of Richmond own this company 50% each. So why is the city of Richmond on the hook for $9+ million and Chesterfield is going to contribute only less than $250,000? These figures embarrass me as a resident of Chesterfield. I think they should embarrass the Chesterfield representatives on this board. And I think you should really put serious thought to how you're supporting this company, particularly when Chesterfield has no service, except for the Route 1, which you had to be shamed into, not you, your predecessors, had to be shamed into allowing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments from within the room? I would suggest, if any of you Chesterfield persons want to get with Mr. Rabideau and talk to him offline. No other public comments. Board, you received the January 17th board meeting minutes via email last week, I think. Any comments, questions, concerns? If not, can we get a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second.
All right, moved and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, consent agenda is next. We have real-time passenger information, transit strategic plan, task force, support vehicles, media buys. Dexter Hurt, Sam Sink, Tony Bird, Mike Hurt are all here to answer any questions. Do any of you all have any questions about any of the items on the consent agenda? Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I was gonna ask about I'm gonna try and make sure I get on the real-time passenger information signage. Looks like the pilot is for the downtown transfer center. Is there any period when we would revisit looking at any further expansion, or is it kind of, is that really the main location where you would be interested in deployment?
You want Dexter to answer that?
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, so we are already
Can
starting.
you go to the mic, sir? Thank you.
Yeah, so we're already visiting and putting into the budget for the next fiscal year for the other sites. So we're gonna do a sort of a rolling sites as we evaluate kind of the planning for each one and how it would work for each site.
Okay, is there any limitation, like what kind of sites or stops would? those
Right
be
now, the
sensitive?
really only limitation is just power, so they're gonna be a solar system.
Okay.
That's where they're basically good visibility for solar, and just maybe sites that we don't think will be high vandalism or something like that, so.
Thank you.
Are you good? Do we need to pull it to have further?
No,
Okay.
just information.
All right. Any other questions about anything on the consent agenda? And can we get an approval? Motion.
So moved.
Motion made. Second. All right, any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, information items, updated list of recent and upcoming procurement. Ms. Thompson is sick, so Ms. Haynes.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Upcoming procurements report can be found on pages 13 through 14 of your packet, and there are no new procurements added. Are there any questions?
Any questions? All right, hearing no questions, thank you. Next up, staff reports. Safety report, Mr. Carter.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Safety performance report for the month of January can be found on page 15 of the board packet. This report has been submitted and reviewed by the Operations Committee, subcommittee of the board. Are there any questions on the safety performance report from any other members of the board? Being none, that concludes the safety performance report for the month of January. Thank you.
Service report, Mr. Barnum.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The operations report, you'll see starting on page 21. Currently, we're at 232 full-time operators, 28 part-time operators, down about 3.5 operators from this past month. We had 5 operators to be exact, that retired in the month of January. So that caused a little spike in that number. We have a class starting next week on the 27th, looking at 9 people in that class. And we're still conducting interviews. We're on pace to do at least 1 class every month for most of the year. So we're projected to do at least 10 classes, which is what we did this past year. We also started a task force with different representatives of various departments to take a little deeper dive into our operational challenges when it comes to manpower. We're going to be meeting weekly to look at some things we can do from a marketing standpoint, recruiting, training, and so forth, so we can not only keep that steady line of operators coming in, but to also increase our numbers so we can get over that hump. Other than that, I'm going to show you questions. That concludes my report.
Question. So 236 full-time, 232. So are you saying that the four full-time people retired, or it was some other stuff too?
5 retired, I think 2 resigned, 2 terminated, and 2 were part-timers. If my memory serves me for the breakdown for January.
Okay. So that sounds like 10, or close to 10.
10, yes.
And then,
10 full-time equivalents, yes.
so you brought on 6 new people. Okay.
Yeah, we did have a class to graduate in January. We have a class that is set to graduate this week. In fact, I think it's another 5 people that will be graduating, going into service in the next week or so.
All right, any other questions?
We were told that January was probably gonna go down a little. What does February look like?
So
Have a
far, so
forecast.
good.
We don't have retirement. I know we don't know about other things, but we know about retirements.
Yeah, we had 2
And now-
retired 1st of February.
Okay.
So far, that is it. But I usually jinx it every time I say something positive about it. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant. But to answer your question, yes, we're doing pretty well retention-wise this month.
Mr. Chair, I've got 2 points if I may. One, for those folks maybe dialed in or listening, I think it's important to know we just went through a safety report and there were no questions from this board, and this report was speedy. I think folks should again be reminded that the committee work is new to this organization, and a lot of work. We met on February 9th for hours with the operations committee and the finance committee, and a lot of work is going into that. So I think it's really important for folks who maybe dialed in by questioning why there's no questions on a 5, 6, 8, 10-page report. It's because for hours we've dialed into those numbers. So, Mr. Chair, if I may, that's just one quick point I want to make. And number 2, for this group's information, we talked about in our committee meeting. I know that the recruitment update campaign came to us on the finance committee as an update, but we talked about graduation rates of this organization are from class are in the 80% range. 81%, 84%, 82%, 75%, 85%. So when people start class here, 80% of them are graduating. And the number of applicants that this marketing campaign that we just approved on the consent agenda, $500,000 to continue for 6 more months, the applicant pool equals people starting class. And we talked in our committee group, and I thought that we should share it with this team and the public today, that goals being set for people entering class is what we've asked for. And if 100 applicants were to begin class this calendar year at an 80% graduation rate, that would yield 80 new operators this year, which would effectively double the number of new operators that started this past year. So new operators that have graduated class the last 4 years have been 46, 32, 31, 42. And it's a goal and numbers game. And this $500,000 in recruiting dollars we just approved should equal a goal set of 100 candidates beginning class this calendar year, which should yield us 75 to 80 new operators, again, effectively doubling the number of operators we started. So the numbers that you're seeing here on operator retention, the only 2 ways to win this game that we've talked about in our committees are retain and recruit. Retaining, we know how to do that. We're working on those pieces, and recruiting is done with dollars and applicants and candidates beginning class and graduation rate. So again, just committee work back to this group on how these numbers equal is the second point I wanted to make, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
What's the target? We're targeting how many classes of recruits?
10. It average about, starting 10 per class, so that's the 100 number that Mr. Smith was referring to.
And the recruit, the classes last how many weeks?
It varies. If they are CDL, if they have their CDLs, it can take 8 to 10 weeks. But if they don't have their CDLs, if they come in with no credentials, it can take anywhere from 12 weeks plus because of the new federally mandated program that was added on last year and to get them acclimated to operating a bus.
All right.
Mr. Chair, dovetailing on Mr. Schmidt's comments, I thought it was very helpful in the Operations Committee when we got an update on how recruiting is done and what types of media we go after. And it was good to watch the Super Bowl and see GRTC on there. But I think going forward, as we go forward, we talked about, or we learned about how we go after those recruits. And we were suggesting at the time, and we should suggest into the future, those areas where we have a chance to get multiple touches. Social media is a big one. And so it was really good and helpful for me to understand how we're spending those dollars.
Great. Any other questions? All right, thank you, sir. Next up, Mr. Byrd.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Here for the maintenance report is found on page 26 of the board packet. Last month, we were only down one general utility. Since then, we've hired that one, so we are now fully staffed with general utilities. That concludes the maintenance report, unless we have any questions.
So you don't have any, you're 100% staff.
We are back to pre-pandemic numbers, which means we are short a couple mechanics that we were before pandemic, but yes, we are 100% since then.
So are we gonna hire those? Okay.
We have 2 interviews today for mechanics, so
Okay.
hopefully we'll hire some of those.
Okay. As always, that's good news. Thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank
Can
you.
we start recruiting people from his department? He does really well holding them in there.
All right. Let's see. Ridership.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This report is found on page 28 of your board packet. Local fixed route ridership is up almost 10% from pre-pandemic, looking at January of 20 to January 23. The local pulse and express routes, those continue to be down from pre-pandemic numbers, but we are showing encouraging month-over-month and year-over-year growth. Local pulse routes are up, or the pulse route is up 17% year-over-year. Express routes are up almost 99% year-over-year. That concludes my report unless there are any questions.
So what's not, everything is up other than what, where are we struggling? Are we struggling anywhere? It looks like Care Plus. So we're up everywhere with ridership?
Almost, the Care Plus, fiscal year to date is down.
What would you attribute that to?
Maybe Tim could speak more to the paratransit demand that we are or not seeing.
Yeah, actually, what we've seen is that for this fiscal year, even though the Care and Care Plus ridership may be down, we actually have seen an increase in our Care on Demand. And our Care on Demand is a premium service, which is also offered to our paratransit customers. Last fiscal year, we were about 15% of our ridership was Care on Demand. It's now up to 20% for this fiscal year. So pretty much some of those customers have shifted over to that service.
Okay, thank you.
Ridership's up with, we cut back a few of the buses, right? So, and we're still increasing ridership. That's actually a good sign.
Yes, our Pulse service is still down, especially on weekend midday service. It's a 30-minute frequency right now. We do hope to restore that soon as soon as we meet the operators. So we expect to see a bounce back when we restore service.
Is that it?
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you. Final comments. Ms. Carter.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I will be reporting on the rider comments for the month of January, which can be found on pages 30 and 31 in the board packet. You'll notice right away probably that if we did have an increase in the total number of complaints for the month of January up from what we had in December, which could be attributed to more movement, more activity and so forth as individuals are returning back to school, back to work and so forth. When we look at the trend report, again, because we had an increase in the number of complaints, then those categories that are listed there, there was also some increases when it comes to past up pasture, late schedule, and so forth. But in other news, on a positive note, we had some commendations. There were 7 total. 1 was for customer service representative, 4 were for operators, and 2 was for GRTC when it comes to commendation for continuing with zero fare, and also for having a transit service that's very user-friendly. Yeah. And so this actually concludes my report for the month of January. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, now I'm verified past our passengers, 36. What, tell me about that.
Yeah, so it could be an example of that would be like if someone said that the bus passed them up, but when looking, investigating the actual complaint, they weren't in the bus stop. So there was no way to know, what their intent was. Another could be they may have seen a bus that was in training, so it was out of service, or it could have been for mechanical issue and things of that nature. And so the customer would complain that they were passed up when actually they were not.
So is that number high? Is that a higher number or is that normal? At 36, and I'm verified for passed up.
Yeah, it's kind of high for this month. It can fluctuate depending on, what's happening on the street. But it is high for this month, yes, sir.
Okay. And we got 10 other miscellaneous under investigation?
Yeah, so those can be things like, it could be something related to the mobile app or something else outside the categories that are listed here.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Mr. Chair, the term miscellaneous always concerns me in any business that I'm a part of because it can tend to be a catch-all, and I don't know if there's any way that we could sort of see what those categories are. This is 1 in 5 total are under a category that it would just be helpful in terms of metrics to understand, is it the app or is it something else? I don't know if there's a way we can see what they are, not just out of curiosity because we don't know what miscellaneous means, but to see if there's real opportunities within those numbers to make improvements.
Yeah, I'm sure we could break those out.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Financial report. Mr. Zimmer, Mr. Rowland.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. On page 32 in your packet, you will find the December 2022 financial report. And as Mr. Schmidt had briefed earlier, we spent a good amount of time in the Finance Committee on February 9th. We did a deep dive. So what I'm just going to do is focus your attention to page 33, which is the kind of the one-page overview. Very similar to the prior month's briefings, revenues were unfavorable to budget by about $3.7 million, and this is primarily due to the federal funds revenue being lower than budgeted, due to operating expenditures being lower than budgeted. So the operating expenses are less than budget by about $3.4 million, and this is driven, as we have briefed previously, on headcount. Headcount makes up about 1.8 million of that, followed by favorable materials and supplies, 630,000, purchase transportation, 270,000, and the timing consulting projects, which is about $250,000, and the timing of the booking of self-insured provision liability, about $380,000. All in all, through the 6 months, there currently is a surplus of around 2.6 million. And then from the standpoint of balance sheet and cash flow, we have a strong balance sheet as of December 31st with a cash balance of 9.3 million, of which 5.45 million is in the operating account. So at this time, that's kind of the highlights for the month. If there's any questions, I'll take them.
Any questions? All right, so I guess all the fun happens in the subcommittee. All right, board subcommittee reports. So Jim, do you want to say anything beyond?
Well, as was just mentioned, we met on February 9th. As Mr. Smith mentioned, we went over the recruitment campaign. We dug into those numbers a little bit to try to figure out what the cost was per applicant. And we wanted to track that as well to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can with those dollars, as was mentioned earlier. We do believe that we will have a surplus this year, and it will be the recommendation of the committee to put that surplus into a fund to help us as we looked at the out years on zero fare, and we're having those discussions to be able to help to fund it, to be able to maintain that zero fare in future years. So we would recommend, it's not an action at this point, but we would recommend, as that surplus is identified at a later date, that we do put that money into an account for the future. And then last thing that hadn't really been brought up is split letter with Petersburg Area Transit. They continue to want to not use data to make the split. They want to do a 90-10, which is just because, and we're only asking for some formula to be derived even by a third party. So we're trying to figure out how we can get them to agree to a third party to come up with that formula, so that in future years, there doesn't have to be the same types of discussion where they come in and ask for 85-15. We tell them we think it's more like 94-6 or something in that nature. And then they say, well, we'll just settle for a 90-10. And there's no real discussion as to how we get there. I don't think that's going to be able to take place this year, but as far as having true data to make that split, I think we're probably going to end up with the 90-10, but we are hoping between now and next year to be able to get them to agree to a third party so that we don't have to go through this each year. And I think that is my report.
Anybody want to add anything to that? All right. Councilwoman Robinson, operations.
Good morning. The Operation Committee did meet and had a pretty robust conversation, and all of these wonderful slides that you see in the report was certainly shared with us, as well as the recruitment efforts, and as Dan has already mentioned, recommendations as it relates to setting a goal for the number of operators. Most of the not achieving results that we would like to have seems to be directly related to the number of operators that we have. And so all of the other reports seems to be very favorable. Since meeting, we have had one incident in the city of Richmond at a location where a bus stop is located, which will probably, I would think, may be part of our report in the next month. But there is, appreciate you guys being there at that meeting and having a discussion as relates to that bus stop, not only for the safety of the passengers that are at the bus stop, but also for your drivers that, at that, you know, there's so many buses that come through that site or at that location. And so I'm sure next month, Mr. Chair, there will be a lot of discussion as relates to that. We also talked about the necessity of us talking seriously about our transfer station. The word temporary transfer station has been too long a reality in downtown Richmond, and to support the Greater Richmond Transit, it's important that we give serious consideration as to how we get to the place of the investments that we're making in temporary becomes permanent.
All right. Anything anyone wants to add?
If I may, I was going to add in my report about the meeting that we had last Friday with the businesses, Mr. Saunders and Councilwoman Robinson. And I think the businesses realize that it's not the bus passengers where we're having issues at 4th and Broad. Adrian did stand up and speak about the fact that when we do move to temporary transfer center, it won't be as many people standing there waiting, so that will help. But we also talked about the possibility of moving that bus stop, but there really isn't a great location to move it to.
Okay, well, sure, that will stay on our radar going forward, has to, yep. All right, development, Ms. Smith.
During our development meeting on February 8th, we went through the Title VI plan. That's a document that's required to be updated every 3 years. And changes to the document are going to include changes to public involvement methods, giving them more flexibility, and streamlining the complaint process. We also discussed the Transit Advisory Group, which will be resuming after the break for COVID. And that group includes representatives from Virginia Union, VCU, City of Richmond, and Chesterfield. We talked about expansion initiatives and the temporary transfer center, like Ms. Robertson said, and reviewed the status of expansion initiatives for North-South BRT and the Western BRT. Any questions?
One comment about that conversation. Sam was very helpful to a question that I had to field from a committee that I work on in Chesterfield, where the steering committee, if I get the terms wrong, the steering committee came out of their first information session feeling like there was certain direction that the BRT, the North-South BRT was going. So I think we clarified that this is not intended to say we're taking straw votes and that's going to determine routes of the future. So that was very helpful to get that clarification. And I think that was going to be communicated back to the consultant that is helping us to do that steering committee work.
All right, any other questions, comments? If not, Shirley, you have any CEO comments?
Just briefly, wanted to update you all on the bill, the assault bill that moved to the Senate. When it moved to the Senate, we had to have some major substitutions in the Senate. So as of right now, the key points are the mandatory minimum was removed in order for it to pass the Senate. And so public transit operators are now considered a protected class, like health service workers and police and fire. So anyone that commits an assault and battery against a bus operator will automatically be found guilty of a class 1 misdemeanor. And it takes it a little step further in the fact that if anyone is convicted of that assault and battery against an operator, they will be banned from our bus for 6 months. Before, we were not really able to ban them because the bus wasn't considered property, but with this bill, we will be able to ban them for 6 months. It did pass the House and the Senate, so that is where we are with that bill.
All right, thank you. As it relates to board chair report, I only have a update. We did close down our contract with KL2, Christian Kent, this past month. So I think we had negotiated down the cost, which, you know, we're done. Hopefully we won't need them anymore. And just a thank you to the staff. You know, the board sees the effort, work that is being put in. Clearly with the reports, we see moving in the right direction on most, if not all, of the reports that we are hearing. And I want to shout out the board for the committee work, the time that you guys are putting in. Definitely seems like it's contributing to some efficiencies. Does anyone else have any other comments?
Can I follow up on that? I did send an email about your preferences. I've heard from most of you all or your liaisons, so there are a couple that I've not heard from. But we're gonna go with majority rule, so.
So check if you don't know what Cheryl's talking about. She sent the email, so please go back and verify.
Meeting dates.
Yeah, any other business? All right, if not, we adjourn.